Hello, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Anthony Johnson, the Executive Director of ElderNet of Lower Merion and Narberth. Thank you to our sponsors, Beaumont at Bryn Mawr, Lower Merion Township, Mainline Health, Montgomery County Office of Senior Services, New Horizons Housing, United Way, and Your Way Home of Montgomery County. Their support makes events like these possible. And a big behind the scenes thank you to ElderNet's Advisory Committee, chaired by Board Member Beth Dratkin, and to our Special Projects Manager, Darby Hanovich, for their help with coordinating this webinar. Since 1976, ElderNet has worked to keep older Lower Merion and Narberth residents safe in their homes and engaged in their communities. Please check out our website, www.eldernet.org, and scroll down to the bottom of any page to sign up for our free newsletter or to send your email to stay informed of our latest events. It's my pleasure to join you and our panelists this evening as we discuss scams, an area of crime that's becoming all too familiar in our communities. Whether it happens online, over the phone, or even at your front door, thieves are using some very tricky ways to separate us from our money, jewelry, identity, and other valuable items. The information you'll hear tonight is important because a recent Federal Trade Commission survey found that Americans aged 60 and over are substantially less likely to report being scammed than our younger people. But the older group is far more likely to be robbed of thousands of dollars when they are the victims. We encourage you to take notes and ask questions of the panelists either here or in the days following, because being aware of the different scams is your best defense. Each of the panelists will give a 10-minute presentation, and we'll wrap up the webinar with questions from you. So please put them in the chat. Now let me introduce our first presenter, Officer Daren Swain, who will talk about what are the most common scams to look out for. Officer Daren Swain is employed as the Community Resource Officer for the Lower Merion Township Police Department, and he has been serving the Lower Merion Township community for 11 years. Now, during his time with LMPD, Officer Swain has been assigned to the Patrol Division, Special Operations Unit, and Crime Prevention Unit. As the Community Resource Officer, Officer Swain works with schools, local organizations, and social service agencies to nurture positive relationships.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that warm introduction. Good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Swain, and I'm going to share my screen here because I want to talk to you guys about some of the common scams that you might be facing. And this is not just elders, but unfortunately, like Anthony said, more often elders are victimized by these scams and are not reporting it, even though they're victimized. So we want to talk about these things and at least shed some light on the most common ones, okay? So I'm going to share my screen here.
Not yet.
No.
How about now?
No.
No. Okay. Give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. All right. Good to go?
Yeah. Looks good.
Okay. All right. So we want to talk about fraud protection. And you see here the visual stopping the domino effect. We want to talk about different types of scams that seniors are likely facing. Like I said, a lot of us are facing these same scams, but the rate at which seniors are victimized is significantly higher, and also the rate at which they report being victimized is lower because of maybe embarrassment or not being aware of some of the resources. So we're going to talk about certain scams. Again, we're going to talk about the scams that commonly you might face as a senior, or individuals who reach a certain age, they might face these scams. We're going to talk about different warning signs related to identity theft. And we're also going to go over the next steps after you, unfortunately, would have your identity compromised. All right. So to start off, one of our scams that we're going to talk about is the Social Security Administration scam. And with this, these scammers will they'll call victims claiming they're the Social Security organization. They'll call and say, for whatever reason, your SSI is suspended, or there's an issue with it with your check, and they ask you to verify certain information. Once you verify that information, then they go to accessing other outlets for getting access to your money, and that compromises your identity further. They'll start opening up accounts using your information, and further victimizes you. This is a common scam we unfortunately see, sort of a hybrid of this that we saw, especially after when we started to see disaster relief from COVID. A hybrid of this was that certain communities were getting certain stipends, and people were filing false Social Security claims for assistance in relation to that. So a lot of times what these perpetrators or these scammers will do, they'll do like a robo-dial call. So it'll be a call that you may not recognize. Sometimes they might use an actual person, but often they're using some sort of spoofed call, and it's not the Social Security Administration calling. Oftentimes with a lot of these scams, and you're going to see a theme here, they'll try to implore you to act now and act urgently as quickly as possible. And they'll try to force you to make a quick split-second decision, when in reality, the Social Security Administration is not going to do it that way. They're going to handle things in a much more organized and business mindset, and not force you to immediately go take out, purchase gift cards or things like that. So that's going to be a common theme. There's the IRS imposter scam. And again, like I said before, the scammers are typically aggressive. They try to goad you into doing something immediately, urgently, and a lot of times they might even threaten the victims with potential arrest. They might say you'll get arrested if you try to if you don't pay now, or if you alert the authorities, then we'll come in and arrest you, or we'll have you arrested by your local precinct. A lot of times with these things, they don't have all the information, so don't verify any information. When you verify information and you're not sure of it, a lot of times they use that information to throw back at you. They're very savvy at getting you to think that they're actually who they say they are, when in reality they're not. Like I said, a lot of times victims are threatened with arrest, deportation, or suspending their license. So a lot of times what these scammers will use is the potential that you're going to lose some sort of freedom or some sort of aspect of your life that makes you feel comfortable, and the urgency of it. They're like, you have to go to Rite Aid and get some gift cards right away, or you have to give us those card numbers. And a lot of times with these scammers are operating from overseas. They're not domestic scammers, or because they know that it's a lot more of a challenge to track them. It's very difficult to try to track down the scammers when they might be calling from South Africa or wherever else in the world, especially with the way federal laws are. They're not likely to face prosecution for those scams. So a lot of times we just have to slow things down. If it doesn't feel right, my suggestion is to call the police and ask, does this sound like it's legitimate? I feel like I'm being pressured. A lot of times the case is you're being pressured because it's a scam. It's not legitimate. This is something we see from time to time too. I unfortunately had an incident where I investigated a romance scam. The individual, she just trusted that this person was who they said they were. And it's easy for someone to fall victim to this sort of scam if they're feeling a sense of vulnerability, loneliness, and a lot of times they'll try to send pictures of someone's profile. It's not them. They'll send a random picture trying to make it seem like they are who they are. They'll say that they're deployed, like if they're in the military, or the reason they're always busy is because they're always around their grandkids, or whatever reason they might give. They're never able to actually meet up. They just keep giving excuse after excuse. And what happens is over time, sometimes people develop a relationship or a courtship from all this talking together. And in this particular instance that I had, this individual gave access to all of her accounts. She unfortunately gave the scammer her Social Security information, And it was very sad. It was a lot of money that she lost as a result, and a lot of work she had to do to get her credit back in order. So these scams also tend to be operated from abroad more often than not as well. There's the lottery scam. You just won a lottery. This, I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with, but what they tend to do is, they call you, they're like, you just won some sort of prize. You won a vacation, you won a car, you won, you won the lottery, and you'll get everything you deserve. You'll get this, you'll get the prize. You just have to kind of pay the taxes or pay the fees. You have to pay something up front in order to receive it. And that's the hoax, because you shouldn't have to pay anything if you won this prize. You shouldn't have to pay taxes or pay some kind of fee. If someone's asking you to pay money in order to receive money or receive some sort of prize, that's going to be a red flag for you. That should draw your attention away from that particular thing, and should make you think, this is likely a scam. This is unfortunately something that I see from time to time, the grandparent scam. They, sometimes they'll pretend to be the police department calling to say, we have your grandson in custody, and they bank on maybe the grandson and the grandparent not having the closest of relationships, and maybe the grandparent does not know exactly what's going on, like all the time with their grandchild, but they play on that, and they'll say, we have him in custody. If you're not going to send however much money, he's going to have to stay in jail until he gets the money. So he needs the money right away. Or it could be the grandson, the scammers pretending to be your grandson. Hey, it's me, your grandson. And they won't even say their name. They're waiting for you to say, oh, is it Mikey? And then once you verify who the grandson is, they'll be like, yeah, it's me. I need some money. They're saying I'm going to have to go to jail if I can't get the money right away. The police are right here at the door. Can you just wire some money over? If anyone is demanding that you act urgently, especially, a grandson that you haven't heard from in some time, something like that, that should draw a red flag too. That's, it's concerning. And again, this police department, your police department is a great resource for that. If it doesn't sound right, more often than not, it's not right. Extended warranty scam. We've seen these. You get the calls saying that your warranty is getting ready to expire. We'll just have to verify your information. That way we can extend your warranty. A lot of times they have a little bit of information. They might know the make of your vehicle that you had at some time. Maybe they know a place that you live. They're able to verify some of it, but they can't verify everything. So my suggestion with that is maybe contact the original lender of your vehicle or wherever you purchased the vehicle and inquire about a warranty. And more often than not, with these robocalls, you'll see no caller ID, things like that. A lot of times they're the scammers that are calling with this extended warranty scam. So keep an eye out for that. Contact the place where you purchased your vehicle and see what the deal is with the warranty, or contact your auto lender. Tech support. With this scam, potentially the scammer will call and let you know that there's some kind of issue with the software on your computer. There's something going on. They need to access your computer in order to make sure it's up to date. Once you give them remote access to the computer, then they can install any kind of virus or malware on your computer and shut it down, or get access to whatever account information you have online. So that can be very dangerous as well. My suggestion is, if someone's prompting you and calling you about your software and you haven't noticed any issues with it, especially if you haven't noticed any issues, please don't give them access remotely to your computer. I'd recommend if you are having any issues, contacting whatever tech support you can, going and you make the contact instead of receiving a call that you weren't expecting. There's a healthcare scam. A lot of times with this, they claim that they need your Medicare number to issue you a new card. They'll say like your card is getting ready to expire, or some kind of ruse in order to get your information. Once you give them access to that, they can run up all kinds of healthcare bills and fees on your account. So if you're subjected to something like that, before you give any kind of information, verify anything. If you are prompted by this call and you didn't call yourself, you didn't you didn't pick up the phone and dial Medicare, I recommend you call Medicare just to verify what's going on. Like I said, a lot of times when they reach out to you by phone, if it's some kind of business venture, it's a lot of times going to be questionable. So you got to vet that and make sure that that's legitimate. So we're going to talk just briefly about red flags. So kind of talked about this already, but if they're threatening to arrest you, that should be a red flag right away. You know, that's not how any of this works. If you don't pay this fee, you're going to be arrested. A lot of this, if there is some kind of concern, it's more or less like a civil kind of thing where you should have an opportunity to address whatever the matter is in some sort of court before any kind of arrest or any kind of fines or would take place. So if someone's threatening you with arrest, that should be an immediate red flag. If they're asking for personal information over the phone without you initiating the call, that should be a red flag. A lot of times these callers are vague. They don't know all the information, but they know some. So they'll allow you, they might even have awkward pauses in the call where they allow you to tell them the information and they just verify just a little bit. And once you tell them what you have, now they're able to access your information. Anytime they're asking you to pay in gift cards, credit cards, anything like that, that's going to be a red flag. So, you know, that's not how anything works. That's not how business works. That's not how the federal government works. Anybody asking you to pay for some kind of outstanding bill with a gift card, that's a red flag. And automated calls. You know, sometimes automated calls could be legitimate, but a lot of times it's a way for someone to disguise their voice or hide behind a machine and, you know, kind of just hope that you will pay. So if you get an automated call, whether it be from your bank, presumably from your bank or from any other kind of creditor, just, you know, put a pause on that and give your creditor a call just to make sure this is legitimate. Identity theft. So talking briefly about identity theft, obviously somebody steals your personal information to commit fraud. And these are ways that you can determine if someone's taking your information. So if you start to see unusual things on your bank account, so you should be monitoring that closely. If you see unusual activity, if you check your credit report and notice outstanding, you know, accounts that were open using your information or unfamiliar medical bills, anything like that should alert you that your identity has potentially been compromised. A lot of times with these scammers, they'll start with a small test charge on your credit cards or on your you know, on your debit cards or on your bank accounts. So do a test charge, and then after that point, once they see that you're not paying close attention to your accounts, then they go for the big withdrawals on your account. And if you notice any unfamiliar charges, just in general on your credit report, that should let you know, maybe I should look a little bit more closely into my credit report. Maybe I should do some research. So if you ever suspect that, you know, your identity has been compromised, or you get a call from something that seems like it's not legitimate, like it's a scam, definitely call 911, call your police department, call us. We'll be happy to take the report, or we'll be at least happy to give you some advice. I've had plenty of times where someone's called and said, I'm not sure if this is a scam or not, but you know, I want some advice. And then after they tell me what happened, I'm like, yeah, I think that was a scam. So definitely give us a call. Make sure that you also double check your credit reports. Check with the major crediting bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And the number is here on the screen to request a copy of your credit report from annualcreditreport.com, or you can go to the website. And that's all I have for you. So I'm Officer Swain. Thank you again. My email address is on the screen here, and so is my direct line. If you have a question at all about any of this, feel free to reach out to me. I'm a resource. I'm happy to help. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
And thank you so much, Officer Swain. It's mind-boggling to see all the many different types of, you know, opportunities there are out there to scam. And you just wonder if, you know, these bad people use this energy for good, you know, how much better would the world be? But that's what I was thinking about as I saw your presentation. So next up, we have David Shallcross, who will discuss the difference between unknown scammers and persons of trust, as well as financial exploitation. David Shallcross is the director of the Senior Protection Unit in the Office of Public Engagement at the Pennsylvania Office of the Attorney General, with more than 40 years of public service experience at such agencies as the Bristol Township Fire Department, the Bristol Borough Auxiliary Police, the Bucks County Sheriff's Office, U.S. Homeland Security, and others. David has conducted thousands of seminars and presentations throughout the Commonwealth. As director of a department that receives multiple elder abuse complaints daily, media outlets all over the state regularly request his appearance so that residents can learn from his significant experience. David serves as the Attorney General's designee on the state Supreme Court's Elder Justice Advisory Council and as an active member of the U.S. Secret Service Philadelphia Region Cybercrimes Task Force. David, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Anthony. First, I'm going to apologize for my voice. I have a head cold. I'm a little congested, folks, so hopefully you can still hear and understand what I have to say today. So first, we're going to talk about the scammers that are putting on these scams that Officer Swain just shared with us. And Officer Swain was spot on, right? These are the common scams. Our office gets the exact same type of reports. And these scammers take advantage of you. And people often ask me, well, how do I become a victim? Why are they calling my number? And I got to tell you, these are unknown people. You do not have any contact with them otherwise. These scammers randomly select numbers through computer list. They buy marketing list. They have automatic computerized dialers that just randomly generate numbers till it rings. They may or may not have your information. Like Officer Swain pointed out, some of the scammers will know a little bit. It'll be vague. For example, a big credit card scam would be someone calls you and says, hi, we're calling from Visa. Well, naturally, Visa is the largest credit card in the world. Most people have a Visa account of some type. So a lot of people answering the phone would say, well, yeah, I have a Visa card. And I'm going to tell you there was a $5,000 purchase on your card that appeared to be a little unusual. So we flagged it. We'd like to remove the $5,000 charges. All I need from you is to verify the 3-digit security code on the back and the last 4 of your account number. Now, why would a scammer want that? Because those 3 digits on the back allow you to use that card online without being physically present, not being arrested at the store. You can be in Indonesia and go online and order whatever you want. But they might have your name. They might know that they have part of your account number. You know, different ways in the store. You leave a receipt behind. Someone takes a photo of your card when you set it down for a moment. You leave it with a waiter or waitress who walks away and skims the card to steal the data. These are unknown perpetrators, people we don't know. We can't identify them later. Very difficult. Just as dangerous, in my opinion, is the known trusted perpetrator. These are people in our daily lives that we trust and we encounter on somewhat of a regular basis. Examples of this financial exploitation would be family members. Who knows you better than your own family? They know your name. They know your date of birth in a lot of cases. They send you a birthday card, right? They can use that information to then steal from you, take your assets, create new lines of credit without your knowledge or information, move your bank account to an online account. If you're 84 and you've never done online banking, that should be a red flag if someone realizes you're not getting statements in the mail any longer. Why is that? Question that. Is it a friend? Maybe a friend you haven't seen in a long time, or someone who pops up and claims to be from your past. We went to high school together, or I remember you from college or the old neighborhood. Maybe you did know the person, but why are they interested in meeting up with you today? They become someone close to you and they want to be in your life all of a sudden. And then they start saying how they could help you. If only they had your debit card, they'd be glad to go to the grocery store on your behalf. They'd be glad to pay your bills to help you out so you're not frustrated with that checking account that's so difficult to balance. Be cautious. And not only are we talking about family members and friends, professionals as well. That's right. People in the finance industry, brokers, investment personnel, people at your bank or credit union. How about a funeral director with that prepaid funeral plan? An attorney, a realtor. any of these people. The Attorney General is an equal opportunity incarcerator. If they're violating your rights and stealing your funds, we want to know about it. We will arrest when we have the evidence to do so. There's a new law in the books, Pennsylvania, new law 3922.1 out of the Crimes Code under theft for financial exploitation of care dependent and older adults. If that amounts over $20,000, the Attorney General's office has immediate jurisdiction to investigate and prosecute. Just because these people are known to you or you've authorized them to work on your behalf does not give them the right to steal from you. And when this happens, it can really put somebody back. $1,000 might be a lot of money for some people, but I've seen cases of $300,000, $400,000, $1 million gone. Sometimes it starts small. They keep the change for going to the store. Other times they're transferring the deed of your house and your automobile. That, folks, is financial exploitation. That is a crime. Some of the other questions I hear sometimes people say to me, well, how do I fall for this? Why am I not aware that this is not legal, that what they're doing is they're taking advantage? And there's a couple of answers to that question as well. One of those is scammers like to use emotional triggers. So if I'm a scammer, some of the emotional triggers I might use is fear. If I scare you, like Officer Swain pointed out, this is the IRS, you're going to be arrested. You failed to file proper filing 8 years ago. I don't know about you folks. I'd have to go dig through my basement for paperwork from 8 years ago, and I'd be like all upset on the phone. And that's what they count on, that fear factor. It's an emotional trigger. How about love? Love's an emotion. You heard about the romance scam. Again, on the slideshow we just witnessed. Somebody takes an interest in you. They want to be your companion. They want to get romantic. They promise a visit. They promise a night out on the town. And then they have an emergency and they need you to help with money. Empathy. We all want to care for others. That's the charity scam. When you help Children's Hospital, the Wounded Warriors, our firefighters fund, those scams are also using that emotional trigger. Devotion. It was the grandparent scam. You love your grandkids. That's why grandparents don't hesitate to help. Hesitate. As Officer Swain mentioned, hit the pause button, stop and think. Call the family. Call the cell phone of your grandkid. Even if you're being instructed, don't do that. They've taken away my cell phone, Graham. Call anyhow. Call that house. Where's Jimmy? Oh, he's on the sofa watching the 76ers. He's not in prison in Tijuana. No, don't send any money, Mom. What are you doing, right? That's a good outcome. And lastly, joy, right? You're wonderful. You're joyful. You're happy. I'd be happy if I won the $1 million sweepstakes too, but I didn't. So remember, you have to play to win. You got to be in it to win it. My best advice is, first off, don't answer your phone. Don't even pick up the call. Let them go to your answering machine and monitor who's leaving you a message. Then you can think about it clearly. Call numbers that you already have. Don't trust the caller to tell you where to call back. Get your bank statement. There's the customer service number. Your electric and utility bills. There's the customer service number. If it's a government agency, the IRS, Social Security, Medicare, look up the proper phone number and you contact them. If your phone's ringing, don't go singing. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Anthony. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much, David. And what really resonated with me while you were speaking was the emotional trigger aspect of it, and the ideal that, after Hurricane Ian or mass shooting, we see so many different GoFundMe and other things pop up where people are asking for money, and you want to give because, that's what Americans do. We help each other, but there are so many opportunities out there to be scammed. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. So now, as you can imagine, a toll is taken on the mental health of a scam victim. So here to discuss that more is Laura Flowers, a licensed social worker in the state of Pennsylvania and a certified financial social worker and program manager of the Financial Empowerment Program at Jewish Family and Children's Services. The program offers financial guidance and support through one-on-one coaching sessions and financial literacy workshops with the goal of helping participants improve their financial literacy, increase their confidence around money, and gain financial stability. She has worked with JFCS for 7 years and lives in Warminster with her husband and 2 children. Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Anthony, for that introduction. And I know I'm enjoying the program so far. I'm definitely learning some good tips and tricks around scams. I'm going to share a presentation just to keep myself focused and on task. So just let me pull that open for you guys. So before I get into my topic tonight on scams, I just wanted to give a little overview about JFCS as an agency, for those of you that don't know too much about us. So we're a large social services agency in the 5-county area. We serve Philadelphia County, Montgomery, Bucks, Chester, and Delaware counties. We offer a range of different programs and services for all different kinds of people. We have programming around mental health. We have counseling, art therapy, programs for basic needs to provide food, clothing, different supports in that way. We have programming for older adults and Holocaust survivors, people living with disabilities. We have programs for children and families. We have parenting workshops. We do prevention programming in schools. We have support groups for LGBTQ individuals, all kinds of things going on. So if you want to learn more about our agency and what we do, I suggest going to the website, which I have on this slide here, jfcsphilly.org. And as Anthony mentioned, one of the programs that I oversee at JFCS is the Financial Empowerment Program. So like he gave in my introduction, I do financial literacy workshops such as the one that you're all here for tonight. I run a monthly virtual women's support group. Sorry, my cat just came into the room. And the one-on-one coaching sessions is where I can really help people individually with whatever stress they might be facing around finances. If they have, more information they want to learn about budgeting or credit, anything like that, I'm here to help. It's a free service that I'm happy to work with anyone who's interested. I'll give my contact information at the end if you're wanting to work with me. But certainly, some individuals that I work with have definitely been victims of scams. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about tonight. Specifically, the emotional toll that can come about when you've been a victim of a scam. I think it's something that's not always talked about, but is really important to pay attention to. So the nature of this crime is that a lot of times the perpetrator is hard to track down. Like Officer Swain was saying, they work from abroad, they disguise their voice. We don't have a lot of information about them. So what happens is when we talk about scams, and even in tonight's program, you're seeing a lot of the emphasis is placed on the victim to have to protect themselves, to be on guard, to be educated, to be informed about all the different new kinds of scams that are popping up. You've got to be constantly vigilant, and that's a lot of responsibility and pressure on all of us to be, better than the scammer and always being aware. So when someone does inevitably get scammed, and it happens a lot, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, there's scammers popping up everywhere. So, at some point or another, someone may find that they've become a victim of a scam. The tendency is to blame yourself for what happened because you weren't smart enough, you didn't recognize the red flags, you were too trusting, you weren't educated. So this can really impact someone's mental health. Like Officer Swain said, there's a lot of times people are ashamed of what happened, they're embarrassed, and they don't want to talk about it because they feel like, everyone else, why was I the victim of the scam? Everyone else was smart enough. And unfortunately, I didn't see the signs. So this can really impact a person's self-worth and self-esteem. where you feel like, I've done something wrong to deserve this crime that's happened to me. And in cases where someone's lost a lot of money, this can lead to depression and feelings of hopelessness and even thoughts of suicide for some people. So this is a really serious issue, and I want just everyone to be taking care of themselves if you find yourself in this situation. So I think really my most important advice, which has already been stated tonight, is to recover emotionally from a scam, you've got to report it. Like you've already heard, call your local law enforcement. You can report the scam to the Federal Trade Commission. Talk about what happened to you, share your story. You're going to find other people that have been victims of scams as well, which will help you feel not so alone in what's happened. The more we can talk about these kinds of instances going on, the better informed our law enforcement will be to track down these criminals, recognize trends and patterns, things that are going on, so that they are better equipped to actually catch the criminals. If you're too embarrassed to report what's happened to you, then your community isn't going to know either, and someone else might fall victim. So if it's too late to help yourself, at least you can report what's happened and maybe help the next person down the line not make the same mistake that you did. And really, really, as much as you can, try not to blame yourself for what happened. Like I said, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So these scammers are manipulative. They're good at what they do. They know who to target, when to target, who's vulnerable. And it's not your fault that this happened. So, use that as much as you can to help not impact your self-worth too much. And really seek mental health support if you need to. Like I said, use your support network, share what's happened. Don't try to hide from the shame. I also wanted to mention too, I don't know if there's any caregivers that are listening to the presentation tonight who are, wanting to help their older adult loved one. It's really important to use supportive language if you are in a situation where your older adult loved one has become a victim of a scam. You don't want to be too judgmental of them and say, oh, why did you let this happen? You weren't smart enough. I can't believe you did this. That can be really damaging to them, and it'll just increase the feelings of self-blame and worthlessness that they're already putting on themselves. So instead, use supportive language. Say, how can I help you through this? What do you need me to do? How can I help you fix this? And whatever you can do, don't blame them for what's happened. Like I said, the scammers are masterminds. They've got technology, they've got all kinds of things at their fingertips to trick really anyone to fall for their scam. I wanted to put some helpful resources on the slide. I have the Federal Trade Commission on here. Like I said, you can report scams to them so they can kind of track the national trends. Also, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has a lot of really helpful consumer educational information if you're a person that likes to go online and read about the different scams. And the AARP, actually, I love their website for learning about different scams. I know sometimes I've had people call into the financial empowerment program wanting help, and they'll mention a scam that I haven't heard of. So I go into AARP to look it up and find out what are the tips that they recommend for recovering from this type of scam. And they've got hundreds of different scams on their website. So check that out. They have the Fraud Watch Network as well, which is a toll-free hotline that you can call, and someone will actually help walk you through the steps of recovery if you're needing, more individualized advice. So I just wanted to end it there with my contact info. Like I said, I'm the program manager of the Financial Empowerment Program. So my email is on here. If you have a question, please reach out. If you're interested in becoming a client, you can call our care navigation phone number. That's the 1-866-JFCS now. And our care navigation specialist will help you get connected to either my program or, one of the many different services we offer at our agency. And there's our website on the screen again as well for those of you interested in learning more. But that's what I have tonight. So I'll turn it back over to Anthony.
Thank you so much, Laura, for telling us more about that very important aspect of the shame and guilt and embarrassment that comes a lot of times when someone is scammed. And what I was thinking about is this would be a good time to spotlight the new national 988, the number that you can call from any phone if you're feeling like you're in the midst of a mental health crisis, or you're even getting thoughts of suicide, as Laura was saying in her presentation, because you can imagine, how devastating it could be to lose your life savings. And then, as Officer Swain talked about with romantic scams, that's a double layer of pain that you get because you lose your money. And then this person you thought, you had as a love and a potential companion, was really scamming you the whole time. So there's that double sting of that. So again, just to highlight 988 as a possible resource. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. What do you do if you're scammed, and what are some legal protections? Lucy Q has those useful tips and resources. She currently works at the Senior Law Center as a staff attorney in its Norristown office. She represents elderly victims of crimes and protection from abuse hearings, orphans court matters, landlord-tenant matters, and provides general legal advice and advocacy to senior citizens of Pennsylvania. Prior to this, she was an assistant district attorney at the Montgomery County DA's office for 5 years. Lucy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Anthony. Good evening, everybody. So we've all had some good information shared here. Let me share my screen. I'm going to close up the presentation and, like Anthony said, discuss what to do if you've been scammed, and also discuss some legal protective measures you may be able to take. Everybody can see my screen? Okay, good. So just briefly, who is Senior Law Center? We exist to seek justice for older people by using the power of the law, educating the community, and advocacy on multiple levels. We are one of the few organizations that serve only senior citizens. So when we say senior, it means 60 and over. If you are 60 and over and are a resident of Pennsylvania, you qualify for our services. Okay, let's see. Briefly, so we serve everybody who lives in Pennsylvania. However, we give advice to those that are outside Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. If you're a resident of Philadelphia and the surrounding counties, we can do direct representation. So what that means is we can enter our appearance on a court case, we can write letters on your behalf, etc. We could be your attorney. But we can give general advice and information.
Obviously, it's flexible. I just didn't know.
To anybody in the state. And that is our main number. You can call us. Just let us know what issue you need help with, and somebody will get back to you. I will state that there is no income threshold to qualify for our services, or no income ceiling. But with limited resources, we do try to serve those who are most in need. If English is not your primary language, we also have interpretation services available. Lastly, these are the areas of representation. So in Montgomery County specifically, that's where you're viewing from, that's where you live, we have our victim services unit. So if you're a victim of financial exploitation, scams, what we're talking about today, if you're a victim of abuse, we could represent you directly. On the other issues, housing, kinship care, things like that, we generally just give advice. But in Philadelphia, we do have more attorneys who can help you directly if you're a resident of Philadelphia. Lastly, we do get a lot of questions about, wills, things like that. That's not something we do on a general basis. However, we do run clinics every year. So you can always call and get information about that. But I also recommend, the Montgomery County Bar Association. They can refer you to an attorney and might be able to do it of low cost if, you have limited means. Okay, so prevention, we talked about a lot of this. I'll just hit on a few points that we did not talk on. So obviously always confirm if somebody is calling you or, seeking your attention via your computer or email. I've heard a lot of instances where, for example, the phone number will be spoofed. So it'll look like it's calling from your bank, like TD Bank. That's what the number will actually reflect, but that's because they've changed the number they've actually dialed from to reflect a different number. I've also had instances where seniors will say, someone got a hold of my computer, they asked me to log into my account, but they told me I couldn't tell anybody because they were doing an internal investigation. I couldn't call the bank directly. Those are red flags. Lastly, we, in this instance of, as David was talking about, crimes involving people, I've had instances where seniors will sign a document that their child asked them to sign, an adult child, and they don't realize what it is until they realize it's the deed to their house. It's a power of attorney document that gives their child broad powers to do, financial transactions on your behalf. And, sometimes that ends in somebody that you used to trust draining your account. So even if you trust that person, read the document you're signing, right? And if they love you, if they are trustworthy, they're not going to think anything of that. If you say, hey, can I just read this document? Like, can I get back to you in a day? Okay. Because if somebody actually, cares about you, they want you to know what's going on. They're not going to just say, just sign it. Don't worry about it. They're going to say, okay, if you want to take time to read it, go ahead. Always read before signing something. And also, I'll just flag these other issues, wire transfers and checks. So if somebody wants you to wire money, and it's not for, like, you're not buying a house, something you planned a long time for, something that you've already spent a lot of time organizing, that's a red flag. Checks. I've had people say, the people said, oh, you're, for example, you have money in an offshore account waiting for you. I'm going to send you a check. Please deposit this check and then wire me, half the check amount. And then they see the check show up on their account and they, wire that money immediately. And then 3 days later, that check turns out to be fraudulent. Now we're doing some advocacy on, with banks, basically stating, why are you giving this person access to that money when that check is not valid? That's not a fraud, it's a bad check. But, banks, we're advocating on that part, but a lot of banks just give you money right away. So if you're getting a check from somebody you don't trust, from somebody you don't know, there's no harm in waiting a few days to see if that check actually clears. All right. So these are things you can immediately do if you realize you're a victim of a scam or financial exploitation. And we've covered a lot of these before, but this is just like a laundry list of everything you should do or can do. File for a police report, and also just keep a record of it. You can ask for a copy of the report, but also jot down what the number is. And I will talk about that a little later. So you have a record of it. Notify the bank. So tell them, something fraudulent has happened with my account. Close that account, open new accounts, etc. Also notify, if you're getting Social Security payments, make sure you notify them that you change your bank account so that your money that you depend on is, being deposited into the correct account. Something we talked about before, I have a credit freeze on all my, my credit, because unless I'm applying for credit, which doesn't happen very often, it might happen once a year, there's no reason I don't want that added protection. So I have a freeze with all 3 credit agencies, which means that nobody can get credit under my name unless I unfreeze it, including myself. If I have to apply for a mortgage, I have to unfreeze my credit report. I recommend that to everybody. If you don't want as restrictive as something as that, you can place a fraud alert, which is a little less restrictive. It just kind of places a flag on your account. There are still some steps you have to verify additional information to access your credit, but I would suggest a credit freeze because that's the safest way to go about it. If your identity has been stolen, when we say your identity has been stolen, usually it's your Social Security number, which will enable someone to open credit again with your identifying information. And this is more so, well, this is for scams, but also, when relatives or friends are taking advantage of you, get all the bank statements for the period in question. So if you think, a home health aide has been taking money from you, go back, from the time that home health aide started working in your home and go through your purchases, your transactions. See if you recognize every transaction, see if you authorize those transactions. And do it, as soon as you can, because it's easier to get bank statements when they're still somewhat current. If you're going back further in time, it's going to be a little more difficult. And as with anybody, your memory is going to be foggy, right? It's going to be harder for me to remember, well, what did I do at that store 2 years ago, as opposed to when what did I do with that store 2 years ago? Did I actually make that purchase? And that's a tip for everybody, actually. So, if your child, if your daughter or son or relative, you're giving them your card to buy groceries, nothing wrong with that. Everybody, we want to trust our loved ones, and 99% of the time, they're not going to take advantage of you. We're talking about, the 0.1% of the time where, something bad happens. And we just want you to keep an eye out for that. But I always say, even if, you absolutely trust the person that you've, placed your credit card with, placed your debit card with, there's no harm in reviewing your monthly statements just to make sure nothing looks awry. Because if something does happen, you want to catch it as soon as possible. And the way to do that is to keep abreast of your financial information. And as long as you're able to do so, if you have the resources, if you're able to do so, please keep up with your financial information yourself. Even if you have someone else helping you, it doesn't hurt to have another eye on it, another set of eyes on it. So other things you can do once you've been scammed, write clemency letters to the bank or credit card. So what that is basically, and we could do this on your behalf. Senior Law Center can do this on your behalf. Writing a letter to the bank, credit card company, whatever institution is holding your money, where you've lost money, stating, this is what happened. I'm, victim of a scam. I'm victim of financial exploitation, asking them to refund you the money. Many times that does not work, I will be honest, but I have, seen some instances where the bank will refund you the money. I'm not talking about $100, I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes the bank, if you were a long-standing customer, if you're a senior citizen on a fixed income, they will refund you the money. So it certainly doesn't hurt to ask. If you're being sued by a creditor because of a credit card debt that you've incurred because of the scam, we can help defend you in those collection actions. Finally, if, for example, a power of attorney or someone in a fiduciary position has taken advantage of that position, obviously revoke that power of attorney, revoke that power that they have. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. So I'm sure many of you have thought about, personal planning documents, planning for your later stages of life, especially if you become incapacitated, if you're unable to handle your own financial affairs. A lot of the times attorneys rightfully recommend a power of attorney. A power of attorney is someone who who has the ability to control your finances. Doesn't mean, usually you still retain the ability to handle your own finances. That person just has an additional power. And durable power of attorney means that they retained that power even when you become incapacitated. So that's something that attorneys will often recommend, once you've reached a certain age, to sign over this document before you become incapacitated. Because once you become incapacitated, let's say you have dementia, etc., then you're not able to sign that document. So most people recommend you signing a power of attorney document, giving somebody you trust power to handle your financial affairs. I don't advise against that. I think that is the right way to go. Make sure it's someone you trust. And also, as a recommendation, there's no harm in naming two individuals. That way, you have two people looking at your accounts. It's not all one person. If that's the case, it's and one person's trying to take advantage of you, it's much harder if you have another person checking what that person is doing, and letting other people know, hey, this is my, this person's my power of attorney, right? I think isolation is something scammers do, whether it's a family member or not. If they isolate you, if you don't have the ability to tell other people what they're doing, they're most likely to get away with it, and it escalates. But if you have somebody else looking over you, if you're telling other people what's happening, if something bad is happening, it's more likely to be cut in the bud. And just really quickly, guardianship, that's just a resource for people. If sometime down the road, you're unable to handle your own finances, you're incompetent, or somebody is, a loved one is incompetent. But this is like the broadest power that you can have over somebody. Basically, you control every aspect of their life. I normally don't recommend this unless a person is totally incompetent, not able to make any decisions for themselves. And a joint bank account is another way for somebody else to keep their eyes on your account. It could be a trusted family member. Again, it's like balancing, right? You want somebody else looking over your account, helping you out, but you have to make sure that that's someone you trust, and don't hand over, 100% power. Always keep abreast of your own financial information so that you know what's going on. And I think, just one brief note, filing a victim compensation fund. So in a lot of these instances, because the scammers are so good at what they do, the chances of recovery are pretty slim. Once you've wired the money, once you've given the gift card information, unfortunately, you're likely not going to see that money back. One thing that is available for seniors is filing a victim compensation fund claim. And you're eligible if the majority of your income comes from a benefit, such as Social Security, such as pension. You have to have made a police report. That's why earlier I mentioned making a police report right away. And what you would be eligible for is up to 1 month's amount of that Social Security or that benefit. So if let's say your entire loss is $10,000 and you make $2,000 a month in Social Security and another $500 in pension. So you would be eligible for $2,500, to try to, it's not to make you whole, but it's to help you back on your feet. So that's something we can also assist you with if you do become a victim of scam. That's the end of my presentation. I will just go back quickly to our main number if you want to jot that down. If you have any questions, and certainly if you've been a victim of any of the scams that we've discussed.
Lucy, thank you so much. I can't think of a better way to, wrap up the presentations than this, encouraging information that you have about, there are agencies you can reach out to try and recoup some of the money you've lost, and also to try and, punish, for lack of a better word, the bad guys who are out there, doing this scamming. So thank you again, for sharing that with us. And I wanted, in the few minutes we have left, while anyone in the audience is thinking of any questions they have, I wanted to ask Laura about credit card solicitations. I know that's something that, they seem to come every day in the mail, and sometimes you just want to toss them right out. But is that the smartest thing to do? Are there things you should do with these credit card solicitations before you throw them in the trash?
Yeah, it's not the best idea to just toss them right in the trash, because although everything seems digital these days, there are still dumpster divers out there who will look for your personal details in the garbage. So I would say the best idea is to shred those and make sure they're not just going straight into the trash. Another piece of advice I could offer is there's something called the opt-out pre-screen. It's a website, optoutprescreen.com. You can go there and it will take you off of those credit card offers where you've been pre-approved. So that will really reduce a lot of the credit card offers you get sent in the mail. I think once you sign up, I forget if it's 5 years that you're off the list or if it's indefinitely, but that can help too, so you get fewer of them coming in.
Thank you for that website.
You're welcome.
And can you say it one more time, please?
Optoutprescreen.com.
And we'll make sure we make that available with the recording for the webinar. So, Officer Swain, I know a lot of times we hear stories about utility people coming to your door and they don't really have their, your best interests at heart. They say they represent a utility company and they don't. So I was wondering, what could you do in that instance if someone shows up at your door trying to get access to your home to check a pipe or, check on electrical, something like that?
That does happen from time to time. That's a great question. Sometimes they'll even start with a phone call where there's some kind of third party utility provider and they're trying to say, yeah, we're affiliated with your utility company, Pico, whatever it might be, but they don't actually give the name Pico. They might allow you to tell them what the provider is. But if they come to your door, by all means, if you don't recognize who's coming to your door and they're claiming they're there to do some sort of service or work, feel free to call 911 and call and have a police officer come to investigate. If you're not expecting them to come to your home, you know, we're trained to sort things out. So if it's just a matter of the person went to the wrong address, that's fine. We can sort that out. Or maybe they are a legitimate utility company and they're just advising you they're going to be doing work in the area. But definitely, you know, give 911 a call. The police will come out, investigate, and you know, you don't have to feel bad about that. You can be a little skeptical when someone comes to your door that you don't recognize and you're not expecting.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And I guess our last question could go to David and Lucy, because it involves the legal protections that we have. Can you leave us on a bright note about some success stories that you've had? Because the Attorney General's Office Senior Law Center, you're helping people, you know, at a really low point of their lives when they, you know, lost a lot of money and maybe some other things. You know, what are some stories you remember from your own work that have, you know, helped you to see the importance of the work that you do?
Well, I think off the top of my head, I can recall a large scam that people were traveling around the state and going into senior communities where they know it's a large number of seniors living closely together. And they would offer services to come out and mow your lawn, do your grocery shopping, little home repairs, that kind of thing. And they were selling these contractual deals and then never coming back. They were taking the seniors' victims' money and not returning. And we found a way to prosecute them under insurance fraud because the language in the contract made it sound like it was an insurance plan. And we sent 5 people to state penitentiaries and recouped a lot of the money. So that's just one example. But sadly, Anthony, most often the victim does not get the money back. There's not a prosecution. Like Officer Swain pointed out, a lot of these operators are outside the United States. Occasionally we find somebody here in the area that's performing these frauds and these scams. We have arrested some family members for financial exploitation, misusing that power of attorney. That's such an important document, misusing a guardianship court appointment or other deeds and transfers being signed and forged even in some cases. So we do make arrests, but I think our best tool is education and letting people know how to report. So real quick, I just want to give out my phone number for the Attorney General Senior Protection is 1-866-623-2137. I put that in the chat. And you can also email scams@attorneygeneral.gov. Lucy?
Sure. So I'll keep it short. If it's a scam, you know, a stranger scam, someone reaching out to you that you don't know, it's unlikely you'll cover from that person. However, you got to look for the deep pockets, those banks that money is coming from. So I've had success, you know, as I stated, you know, $10,000, $30,000 being refunded back. Unfortunately, that's the exception, not the rule. Now, in terms of financial exploitation from a family member, again, if you have the power of attorney document, you are giving a lot of authority to that person. However, the, you know, silver lining, so to speak, is that, you know, if they are your, you know, power of attorney, they are obligated by the courts to provide information as to how they spend that money. So I have a client whose sister took about $100,000 from her, you know, pretty much her life savings. And we filed a petition for an accounting, and it's a civil matter. So if if we went down that road, she probably would have been found civilly liable for $100,000. However, we also advocated for her for criminal charges, and her sister ultimately was charged criminally for stealing money from this individual. And she actually just pled guilty last month, and part of that is restitution. So she's obligated to pay, you know, most of that $100,000 back. Now it's going to come back in, you know, small drips and drabs. I think she's on a payment plan for like a few $100s a month. But when your life savings is wiped out, a few $100s a month is going to make a difference. So, you know, the problem with trusting somebody you love, it's hard to report that person to the police. But again, remember, it's not you, it's them. You know, you're not the bad guy for reporting something stealing money from you. They're the ones who are putting you in that position.
Thank you for that. And thank you for what you do, Lucy, Laura, Officer Swain, and David. Thank you to everyone who came on for your time tonight on this really important topic. Please reach out to us at ElderNet on our website or at 610-525-0706 to follow up with any of the presenters. And stay tuned for our next town hall in March on housing rights. The date and those details will be coming shortly. So again, on behalf of ElderNet and everyone here, the ElderNet Advocacy Committee, Darby, our special program manager who did her magic behind the scenes, Beth Drapkin from the Advocacy Committee, be safe and have a good night.